For this video, I'm talking to you about the best tool in my shop right now. So first off, let me say thanks for watching this channel. I appreciate your patience as it develops. I'm excited about having a channel and I have a lot of ideas, so I appreciate your patience as I work through figuring out just what this channel looks like. My business actually began in my house, and I did not at the time have a dedicated wood shop. I just had to use the house. It didn't take long before I realized that I needed more space and I needed some dedicated spaces to be able to make things. So fast forward, and now it's about 7 years ago, I realized I needed a shop, and my property was big enough to put one on there, but I didn't know exactly what to do. And I didn't have any money. My father-in-law was driving around and found a log cabin that was about to be torn down and burned. So I went over, made an offer to the owner, and he accepted. I numbered all the logs, and I began the process of dismantling the logs and moving them over here to begin building this shop. So when it came time to build this shop here, I had all these 1860s hand-hewed logs, and I had materials that I salvaged, and then I had some new lumber. In the process of building this shop, I was using old materials and new materials, and I had to sort of tool up because I hadn't done a project this big before. At the time, I was using a saw that was a single 110. It wasn't very powerful, and it also wasn't exactly accurate with setting the fence. But this is a log cabin, it's rough, it's hand-hewn, it worked great. So I'm very grateful for being able to use that tool. But as I worked with that tool, I realized that if I'm going to have a proper shop here, one of the most important things that I could have for my business is a quality table saw. I build amplifiers from scratch, which means I build the cabinets, I build the chassis, all the electronics, and I put it all together, and I do all the photography. So I would need a shop that would be able to build things precision, quickly, and that I would also have a space that's kind of a showroom, and also, you know, be able to take great pictures and get products out the door. And since this is my business, this is what I do, I could easily justify spending a bit more. So one of the more important things that I did was I actually went and visited some woodworking shops to kind of see what these guys use and what these guys recommend. And my favorite shop that I've been to, my friend Jerry Powell, has a beautiful shop, and he introduced me to Grizzly. He pointed me in a direction that was a step above a typical just sort of retail home building tool. So before my shop was ever even finished, I started looking and comparing table saws. So at one point I did some work with my brother-in-law, and he also has one of these construction site table saws, and I would watch him set the fence, and he would take a tape measure and he would measure the end of the blade, the beginning of the blade, the end of the blade, the beginning of the blade. I mean, he would have to measure his fence multiple times for every cut. Every time he moved the fence, he would have to measure both sides of it. And I knew immediately, watching my brother-in-law measure the front and the back of the blade against the fence for every cut that he made after moving the fence on one of these construction site table saws, that there's no way I wanted to do that. So my criteria were, I needed something that I could pass old barn wood through, pass beams through, and it wouldn't bog down the motor. I built amplifiers out of old barn wood in the same way that I built this cabin. So I needed a table saw that was going to be able to handle old, heavy pine or whatever it may be. So I went with the 220 volt Grizzly cabinetry table saw. After looking at a lot of specs on table saws, I decided to go with the Grizzly G0690 cabinet table saw. It's a 3 horsepower 220 volt table saw. The other cool feature that it has is the fence. Once you zero the fence out and set it up once, you don't have to measure the front of the blade and the back of the blade against the fence for every time you move the fence. It locks right in there. It's gonna be a perfect cut, or as close to perfect as you're gonna get, and it's fantastic. The third thing that I love about it is that it has a ground cast iron top that is perfectly flat. So there are other things that I do with my business that you need a truly flat surface for, and that works out great. So I love the power, I love the precision of the fence. At the time, it was an expensive purchase. It was the most expensive tool I'd ever bought. It may be hard to make the decision about whether or not you want to buy a more professional grade tool like that. The benefits that I think are involved is the amount of time and headache that you save by not having to measure the fence every single time you move it. Just knowing that it's locked in, rock solid, and that you're gonna get great cuts. It's an industrial cabinetry table saw, but really, for what you're getting, it's so worth it. It is so worth it. If you're trying to up the level of your craftsmanship, but you're using tools that are fighting against you along the way, you're gonna have a more difficult time creating consistent results efficiently. It's not that it's not possible to use inferior equipment and to try and compensate for its peculiarities, but you're gonna be fighting against this. And that's the wrong thing to fight against. Because if you wanna get better at something, the thing to fight against is yourself and your own abilities. You shouldn't have to be fighting with the tool because it's constantly compensating, because you're really wasting your time. It's a huge waste of time when you could spend that time actually honing the craft, not honing the tool. The tool should be ready to go. So I highly recommend getting a quality table saw. I love Grizzly stuff. They have fully industrial, and then they have light industrial. They have tools that will kind of fit every budget, which I really like. But I also am a firm believer in you need to get the right tool for the job that you're doing. If you buy a tool that's quality and you take care of it, it will hold value. If you buy an inexpensive tool that you have to fight all the time, and then by the time its end of service is up, it's obsolete now, nobody wants it. It's not worth anything. So really, you're throwing away your money and you're throwing away your time. Nobody likes doing that. Don't throw away your money and your time. Invest in tools. Buy tools. Buy tools. You need somebody to tell you, buy tools. If you're looking at this channel and you're saying, hey man, this guy's speaking to me, listen.